The Moore Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The Moore Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The Moore Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world on TV, radio and online. I bid you all good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in all the world's time zones. This is The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined by Carolyn Matthews, who is the author of the book Mentoring the Near-Death Experiencer, addressing the need to find the mission in life. Her book includes the entire course on finding the mission in life, as well as up-to-date medical research into the near-death experience phenomena and its survivors, and information on the changes that near-death experiencers have in their lives and how this affects them. Carolyn Matthews has an MA degree in Transpersonal Studies and a BA degree in Astrological Studies. Carolyn Matthews, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Carolyn, just tell me a bit about your background. I mean, how did you get into past lives when, that you seem to be quite into astrology studies as well? I mean, how do the two mix?
I don't know how they mix, but I've been sort of educating myself for years and years and reading ever since I was a teenager, so most of my life. And I've put certain things together that work for me, and I think that's true of anybody, that whatever you do, whatever you take in mentally, you pick out the bits that you can recognize or reasonably accept, and you throw away the rest. So I did that. And how does astrology and past lives mix? I don't look for past lives in an astrological chart, but the South Node represents the past. And if you believe in past lives, if you have that concept, then the South Node will represent that, yes.
So, sorry, if you're going to continue there, please continue.
Well, I can, but you carry on with your question.
Yeah, bear with me. Yeah, I was just going to ask you there as well. I mean, how did you get involved in the near-death experience then? I mean, where did that come about?
That came about a few years ago when I began. Actually, I first came across it when I was a few years back when I was doing my bachelor's degree in Astrological Studies, and I decided to do a stats course, paper on a common denominator, if I could find a common denominator in the charts of near-death experiences. And I did find one which showed up more in the charts of near-death experiences than in the charts of people who hadn't knowingly had a near-death experience or weren't known to have had one. So I thought, oh, that's interesting, yes, and that was when I first became aware of the near-death experience. And it wasn't till later on, when I was doing my master's degree, that I decided to choose to study the near-death experience itself and the survivors, work with the survivors. So I was led by steps to where I am now. And it was because of my work with the near-death experiences that I was I sort of began with my book. The book arose from my master's degree, my thesis.
And how did the university take you doing a study on near-death experiences?
Fine. They were teaching, my master's degree was in Transpersonal Studies, which includes anything beyond the ego. And certainly the near-death experience is a transpersonal phenomenon. It's a transpersonal event. So it fitted right in. And I loved it.
Okay. Now, just tell us about some of the cases that you studied as well. I mean, they must have been fascinating.
What I did with my research, it made me aware of what near-death experiences actually went through when they returned back to their physical lives. They had tremendous challenges. It took them years to process the things that had happened to them, the events and the knowledge that they gained. It was so completely different and so much greater and bigger than anything they'd ever been taught about life after death, and some of them didn't even believe in life after death. Because of that, I think it was for me a very personal moment when suddenly I realized I was going to address one of their main challenges. And I knew I could do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but you don't limit yourself, go with the flow. And that's what I did for my master's thesis. I did address one of their main challenges, and I developed a course to help them address this need. And it was successful. Well, 83% successful, which isn't bad for a first time. It's even more successful now, usually.
Yeah. I mean, it's I really enjoy any conversation that's regarding the near-death experiences, and your work is fascinating as well, because you even sort of touch on a brief word on sort of distressing near-death experiences as well. Could you share some of those with us?
Well, yes. I didn't study the distressing near-death experience during my MA degree work, but of course I came across distressing near-death experience survivors, and I had them on my course, my very first course which I gave. Nobody knows why a person or an individual would have a positive near-death experience or a negative near-death experience. It's not because the person having the negative one has done anything wrong or isn't a good person, or isn't just having bad hair day. It's nothing like that. And I did think about that myself, and the only thing I came up with was some research which somebody had done. And he said, I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but he said, and I do have quoted him in my book, that the distressing near-death experience is probably, in his view, an unfinished or an incomplete near-death experience. And in a distressing near-death experience, the individual has a very unpleasant time and really doesn't want to go back there again. And so, of course, then they have a fear of death, and positive near-death experiences have no fear of death. But for the distressing near-death experiencer, it's something that they don't understand, and they don't know why they had it. But as a researcher that I quote in my book said, really it's just the first stage of the shaman's journey. In other words, if you think about what does the shaman do, the shaman has to overcome the negativity he sees in his altered state, his transpersonal state, or the negativity he experiences, and learn to control it. That's how he becomes a shaman. So to hear this one opinion about, the distressing near-death experience is the first step of the shaman, first stage of development.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Well, absolutely. And what is the purpose, do you think, for people to have a near-death experience?
Now, of course, everybody wants to know that answer. Who knows what the purpose is? Somebody's just recently been asking me this question. Why do some people have it? Does the subconscious trigger it? Is it the psyche that wants to have this experience? I don't know why, but I do know that people who have had near-death experiences, they come back into life, and their main reason for coming back is because they have not yet completed their mission in life. They haven't completed what they came to do in life. And so they have to come back and finish that off. And many of them don't want to come back, but they do, because they know that they have to address this challenge of fulfilling their mission. And many of them know what it is, but a great many don't. And for the ones that don't know, they're the ones that have the angst, the continual, I should be doing this, but I don't know what it is. And for them, it can even produce depression in worst case scenarios. They really need to know what it is, which is why I address that challenge to find the mission in life, and also how to manifest it. The near-death experiencer, having found the mission, is then either subconsciously or subconsciously able to manifest, or channel is the wrong word, but is able to use some of their heightened awareness and their knowledge that they gained whilst they were in the near-death state, and use that to help others through their mission in life or their purpose, whatever it is they have found that they need to do in life. And I think that's a wonderful gift to humanity, because it can have the potential of raising the consciousness in a spiritual way. And for those who don't like the word spiritual, it can raise the consciousness towards natural good, uplifting. And that's how I see it, because near-death experiences are very loving. They themselves have been in a presence of an evolved being who filled them with unconditional love. They never wanted to leave that presence. Whatever they'd done in life, they were still loved. And when the near-death experiencer comes back into physical life, he or she is still filled with this unconditional love, and they extend it to everybody they come across, which for them can bring big problems. People take advantage of them, and sometimes they aren't understood, perhaps by family members or those who are close to them, who expect to come first.
Yeah.
But now the near-death experiencer is concerned about everyone, as well as the family. So in my book, I have written about this so that families can understand where the near-death experiencer is actually coming from, with this feeling of empathy for other people, any other people.
Absolutely. I mean, I've, again, interviewed people on the near-death experience, and like you say, they meet these beings of love, sometimes family members, sometimes, not. And it's just such a life-changing experience from the people that they were before. I would also say that perhaps, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but those who have a negative near-death experience may have felt that that's where they belonged in that moment, because that's the level that they were at. Perhaps they felt that they had been unworthy of love.
They perhaps do. As I say, I haven't researched it very much, so I haven't spoken to a lot. Not very many distressing near-death experience survivors. They usually don't like to talk about it because of other people's judgments.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't keep open minds about these things. And they may themselves feel, oh dear, this is not good, what did I do wrong? But in my opinion, it's nothing to do with that. It's just a learning curve. It's learning to deal with the negativity. We all have to do that at some stage in our lives, and to learn to control that negativity, so that, you know, the individual person, the soul, the spirit, whatever, is the boss.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we all do, whether we know it or not. We have to learn to control whatever it is about ourselves that is negative, and of course we all have something. You might need, somebody might need to control whatever, a strong temper, or
addictions,
prejudice, yes, addictions. I can't sort of, off the top of my head, I can't come up.
Well, you know,
I can't come up with too many of them, but I'm sure there are lots.
Sure. Well, you said something really interesting there as well, and you sort of touched on that as well. You know, about the amount of people having near-death experiences that go unreported.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot. When I was presenting on my master's thesis, there was a gentleman there in the auditorium, and he came up to me afterwards, and he said, I haven't told anybody about this, not even my close family, not my wife, but when I was a child I had a near-death experience, and I spoke to God, and God loved me and still loves me, and I have felt so blessed because I have grown up with this thinking I was the only one that had this close understanding and connection with God, and this was the evolved being. And he said, and then he said, I came to meetings and things like this, like your presentation, and I've met other people who had these near-death experiences as children. I thought, bless you, you are such a nice person. And he said, I had no idea. But you see, he had never talked about it. And the more I talk about it to other people, the more surprised I am how many people there are around me that have had near-death experiences.
Well, I'll say this, that there was a point when I was pretty low, and I was in America. I had gone to bed, and I felt like I left my body. And I was lifted into this tunnel, and there were all these voices around me, and it was absolute love that I felt coming from this thing. And I felt that I had a choice to go or not. And I thought about my parents, and I thought there's no way I could leave them. And bang, I was straight back in. And I remember getting on the phone to my parents, you know, pretty upset. But, you know, I look back on that now and think, well, I wonder what that was. Was that a near-death experience? Perhaps it was.
Well, it sounds as though you've had some of the core elements, and there are now known, recognized core elements of a near-death experience, and certainly you have had some of them. So it possibly was. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I want to get after the outbreak into your book more, and especially the mission as well, our missions in life. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
The Moore Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the Moore Show website.
The Moore Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Welcome back to the show. I'm still joined with my guest, Carolyn Matthews, who's the author of Mentoring the Near-Death Experience. Carolyn, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Now, just before the ad break there, I just wanted to ask you about, your research. What are the building blocks that allow you to follow and find your own mission in life?
To allow me to personally follow my own mission in life, or the building blocks as to where I got to, because my building blocks were the steps that led me to where I am. And as I say, I first started questioning outside the box when I was about 14. When I was 14, my younger brother was killed in an accident. And my mother had an experience then, and it made me think. And my mother never used to tell us what to think. She always left us alone to observe and learn from that. So our parents are very good that way. And I began to ask questions in my mind. What happens about life after death? And things happened. A lot of things happened, which were clairsentient things for me. But even a lady at that time of my brother's death, my mother had a lady that used to come and work for her on a daily basis. Even she came and told my mother that my brother had visited her. And she said to him, "What are you doing here? Is your mother here with you?" And he didn't answer, just smiled. And she got up to have a look for my mother, and my brother disappeared. And she didn't even know he died at that point, but she saw him. So, of course, as a young teenager, I'm thinking, this is rather unusual. I wonder if anybody else has these kinds of things happening to them. And yes, I found out there were lots of other people that had these sort of things happening to them. And I always remember this lady that told my mother about her experience seeing my brother. She said there were two odd things. One, he was wearing his raincoat, but it wasn't raining outside. And she said, when I looked at his hair, it had changed color and it was sort of golden. Yeah, it would be. So that was it was sort of an awakener. And from then I went on, and throughout my life I've read and read and read. I've tried speaking to different people from different religious denominations, but I couldn't get all my answers. So I just did my own research all my life, and I hope to continue to do it. But I've studied, ancient civilizations, mythology, of course, astrology came into that as well, and history, anything that interested me, spirituality, life after death, why some people are empathic or can see things and hear things, and anything that took my mind, I would read it. And what I couldn't accept or believe in didn't bother me. I tossed that out. But I found a lot of truths that I could believe in too. And I had a library. The last time I counted, I had about 300 books, but I've since then already given 300 away, and I have a whole lot more. So those actually were some of my building blocks. Learning to listen to my intuition, and when my family had grown up and flown off in their different directions, that was when I decided I wanted to do something for myself, and I went back to school. I took my bachelor's degree in astrology, and I did a back-to-back. I went straight into the master's degree after that in Transpersonal Studies. That wasn't actually a conscious choice to take Transpersonal Studies. I just always knew within me, and had known for many years, that I'd be attending this particular university, and I didn't know what I'd be taking. So when I was at the stage where I could attend it, because they only taught master's degrees, I found I was studying transpersonal psychology, and I believe in synchronicities, and if things happen so that it's easy for you to follow a direction, it's the right path. If it's not easy and you find there are blockages and you're beating your head against a brick wall, you turn into another direction and make another choice. So that got me to where I actually am, having worked with near-death experiences and been asked to not let that knowledge go, they actually said to me, when you get your piece of paper, Carolyn, these are the near-death experience survivors, don't forget us. Please make your course available for other near-death experiences who may need it.
Right.
And this did touch me, and so I wasn't about to let them down. It took me a while to actually manage to put it together in a book, but I did do that.
So would you say then that most people who have had a near-death experience do come back with a particular mission, in a sense?
They know they have a mission to do, yes. Many of them are told what it is they have to do. And then again, many others aren't told. And my heart was actually touched when I read how much this bothered them. It upset them. And they didn't feel right. They felt they had no purpose in life. You know, life was a little bit aimless for some people. And that, when I read that, I thought, oh, when I learned about that, I thought, that's it. I got the light bulb moment, and I knew right then that was something I was going to address. And I do believe we all have missions, and perhaps near-death experiencers believe that too, before their near-death experience, I don't know. But yes, they do all come back with a mission, and the ones that found their missions through the course which I gave, they were all very spiritually based. Of course, they would be. You know, it was they all wanted to give a service to others, to help others, and I haven't made a list of what their mission statements were, because some of them didn't want me to share their mission statements. They said, no, we're not ready for that yet. You know, we can only go so far, and we'd like to work on our missions first. So that's what they're doing. And the ones that I followed up with have followed their missions and doing all right. They're doing very well. They're fulfilling their soul purpose. I think when you fulfill your soul purpose, you really are quite happy inside, apart from all the distractions that go on in life. And I do think it helped. There's one lady who took my course, and in the evaluations, this is the first course I gave, in the evaluations, she said, I can't quote it exactly, but she said, first of all, this course has validated my experience, something that is priceless. And in only 6 weeks, it has aided me in discovering or remembering or whatever, my mission in life. And she wrote, something I have been waiting to do for 50 years. And I'm thinking, in 50 years, no one has helped this person. And it's unbelievable. There's so much potential here to help these people. And I do believe that it is becoming more available. I think that medical researchers have, especially in the US, where they've done quite a lot of medical research on the NDE, they have become more aware, and they are vocalizing the need for help for not just this one mission, or this one challenge of finding the mission in life, but for the other challenges which near-death experiences have. A lot of them are misdiagnosed, for instance. So it's really in the healthcare support systems and the medical systems that there is a potential to be of more help.
Okay.
As well as, you can get more help from organizations too, but
Yeah.
I'm looking particularly at the medical systems.
Oh, absolutely. And can you share any particular mission? I mean, just one that might be available to just say, well, this is an example.
Well, I'll take that on myself and I'll share mine. My mission came to me by degrees, not through it was something I worked through, and I got a lot of synchronicities that showed me what I was supposed to be thinking about. And it's actually in my book, so I'm just going to quickly just read this, because I didn't say it was that this was my mission, but I had to put it in here because this is where it belongs.
Okay.
And it's to, I believe that my mission is to be a catalyst for beneficial change by providing stimulation towards greater awareness. I haven't really, in my book I don't say that's my mission, but it is, and that's why I wrote that. It's in the preface. And I do that. I do it through speaking, communicating, writing. I'm doing it now, hopefully. People are listening in who are saying, oh, it's all right to talk about the near-death experience. And look, it's all right to know that we can find some help for finding the mission in life. For instance, you never know who you may help. You may not even say very much, and still a few words you've said can have really helped someone.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I suppose you don't have to go to the length of a near-death experience to find your mission in life as well with the course that you do. Is that right?
That's entirely right. I wrote my course for near-death experiences because they think differently to the way they did before their experience. Understandably, their entire concepts have changed at a deep level. Their whole attitude to life has changed. They themselves have changed. So I tailored the course for them, knowing that they thought differently. Some near-death experiences do say our brains are being rewired. In other words, they know they're in answering questions, for instance, they probably come at it from a different way because of information which they themselves have absorbed whilst in the near-death state. And some of them say, I have difficulty with words now because there are no words to describe what I saw and experienced whilst I was in the light and the love of the evolved being. I cannot find anything in a language which is for a physical life or a physical existence which properly describes what I have seen. And I understood that. I quite understood it. So some people, there's one lady who actually left my course. She said, I cannot use words. I cannot do this. And others took the initiative and sent in pictures. That was fine.
Mm.
You're using your subconscious to talk to me with, because the subconscious talks in pictures. But you asked about, can anybody take a course? Yes. One of my very first lessons when I was doing my master's degree was to give a course on finding the mission in life to people that, just as people who hadn't had near-death experiences, as far as I knew. And I did that. It was just people that I could pick from the general public, and they had to have different backgrounds and, different ages and so on. And yes, you can do it. But for that, I didn't use so many. I don't think I used maybe only one transpersonal tool. For near-death experiences, for their course, I used a lot of transpersonal tools and not so many of the personal tools. But for the average person, I use more personal tools because they relate to that better. It's more left-brained.
Yeah, absolutely. And, before we go into the modules and the course and everything, I mean, you must have heard some fascinating stories from these near-death experiences. What were some of the most, interesting examples of where they went and what they got to see?
Well, I cannot quote from just one person, but I can give you a kind of general, what is an NDE like? I can give you a kind of general idea, yes, because although all the NDE stories, all their experiences are unique and to themselves, and they're all different. yeah, each one has some of the core values, and the core values are certainly, first of all, being separated from the body. This is what we call the out-of-body experience. And they say, yes, I was separated from my body and I wasn't at all concerned about the physical body. And yes, I could hear and see the doctors working around me or whatever. And they are adjusting to being out of the body. Some of them say, I looked at myself and I did have a body, but it was a very fine body, wasn't like the physical body at all, which is coarse, heavy. At some point, they then enter into darkness or a void, or, of course, as you've probably heard of, the dark tunnel. And they find in the dark tunnel only a spark of light, or in their darkness, they look around and there's a spark of light. So they're attracted to the light. They move towards it quite quickly. It gets much, much larger as they approach. And as they meet with the light, they see that it emanates from an evolved being. The evolved being is given different names depending on the background or the cultural background and religious beliefs of the individual having the near-death experience. So many of them call the evolved being the all, the whole. Some call it, some say, well, to put it in your terms, Carolyn, you'd just probably say God. Says it, yes. Also, a being of light, or the light. We just call it the light. Some say, oh, it was a very high angel. Some have said it was somebody I knew and, that they had known who passed on, who was very bright. But either way, they all say they're filled with unconditional love. And they do have a life review. They say the life review is almost instantaneous, but they go through everything. And when they get to the parts which they don't like, because they saw, oh dear, I did that part wrong, the evolved being who is with them says, they fills them with even more unconditional love and says, you were just learning then. That was one of your lessons. Now you can look back and see it was not correct or could have been better. So we know, or not we know, but now you see that you've learned that. It was a lesson for you. And they go on from that. They have some near-death experiences, have other events. They visit relatives, for instance. Perhaps they see relatives who will give them messages for people still living in the physical. They can go into different states. But at any point, in any case, at some point, they are told you have to return.
You have to return back, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, you have to go back because you haven't fulfilled your mission, which you promised to do.
Well, at that point, we need to take a quick break. I'm so sorry. We'll be right back after this.
The Moore Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The Moore Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The Moore Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Welcome back to the show. I'm still joined with my guest, Carolyn Matthews. Now, Carolyn, just before the ad break there, you were just going into some of the descriptions on what the experience on a near-death experience, and they were fascinating. They're really fascinating. And I just want to get more into your course now as well. Could you just sort of tell us about the pilot course and the sort of module overviews that you do?
Yes, in the initial course, the very first one I did, which is when I was working with my MA degree, um, I first of all asked my participants to just to write an imaginary story, and I gave them some lead-in sentences to begin their stories with. So this is right brain. This is using the imagination, letting yourself roll and relax. And my reason for doing that, which I did explain to them, I said, when I read your stories, I can align myself up to a point with you. I can align my thinking with your thinking. And it works, does work. And so then I feel that I have a connection with you on that level. And this was my opening one. Since then, in the course in the book, my opening module, the very first one, asks the near-death experiencer to write as much or as little, or nothing at all if they don't want to, about their near-death experience. Because I never did ask them, the very first course, I never did ask them for the story of their experiences, because I know that these are very special and perhaps very private to the individuals who have them. And I didn't, not knowing enough about it, I didn't want to intrude on what I knew to be a very private and sensitive area. But I have since been told by near-death experiences that they would like to share their stories with their mentor, and it would make them feel more welcome to do so. So that is the first module now, please write your story. But I used other, going back into the course, I did use a couple of personal exercises, personal tools, where I asked them to list their strengths and weaknesses, and I asked them to list their ideals. This was difficult for them. They said, this can take ages, it takes a lot of thinking, because they know so much more now. You know? Whilst they're in the near-death state, they're given so much information. It's almost as though they know everything they wanted to know. But when they come back into the physical, they already know that they know this, but they can't pull it out of the brain. I've always thought myself that the brain is an organ for the mind, and the mind holds everything. But it's up to the brain, which, like a computer, has to channel what's coming through it. And sometimes it doesn't. But because of that, the left brain work was a bit more difficult than the right brain. So for the transpersonal tools, I did use, well, journaling is good. I had to do that all the time. Dream work, I used Asclepius as my guide in that. He's an ancient Greek healer. I used that, dreaming, meditation, different kinds of meditation. Certainly some of the meditations, I gave them meditations. I said, you will either read this or have someone read it to you, or record yourself and listen to it. But these, a couple of those meditations were what I call guided or led meditations.
Yeah.
For the other ones, I told them to, here's what you're going to meditate about, jump to it, and they did. They did do their meditations. But then again, near-death experiences are used to doing meditation on a regular basis. So for them, this was good. I brought in a lot of other things as well, but those are some of the main points. And I mentored each one individually. So it was always a one-on-one, and I always made myself available to them. Even if they wanted to phone and talk about things, I was available. They could email any time, and I would be available. And they appreciated that.
Yeah. I mean, I bet they did. And I mean, how long did the actual courses last for as well?
Oh, well, there's a thing. You need to allow a lot more time than you think. I had planned to do one module per week. but that isn't easy. Near-death experiences are having a hard time adjusting to their ordinary everyday life. And some of them still have health problems, which might have caused the NDE or have, got worse since the NDE or whatever. And they have other problems. There may be family problems, or they may not be able to hold down a job anymore because they still haven't processed everything that's happened to them. It's a common thought, a common thinking that it takes about 7 years to process all of this. So I allowed more time. I think most of their participants managed to finish in about 2 months plus instead of the 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Some of them took a lot longer and ran into about 4 months, but that was fine. I was there to do this for them. I knew something was going to come out of it. I knew that I was not just doing it for a one-off thing, and that it was going to help other people besides. And I sincerely hope it does.
So, with your course now, are you still running the course?
I'm not running it myself at the moment, no. I'm busy trying to promote my book, which the course is in. I'm hoping that people will buy the book, find the course at the back.
Yep.
Either if there are near-death experiences, they can take it themselves. But it's far better to have a mentor to sort of bounce thoughts back and forth from. So I'm kind of hoping that other people will pick the book up and say, I will present the course to my group or whatever. I'd be very happy if they did that. That's why I wrote the book. It should be shared. This work should be done by a lot of other people, not just one person. And it should be done by people who are in the places where near-death experiences have their first contact after they return from wherever they've been, from the other side. When they return from the light and come back into the physical, they're usually in hospital. Not always, but more often than not, they're in a medical setting. And that's their first point of contact. There should be somebody there who says, do you want to talk about it? Would you like me to help you with it later on? And so on. There should be. But there isn't.
No, but would you see that changing in the future, perhaps?
Yes.
You would do, yeah.
Yes, I do. I was presenting on my book and my work at the International Association for Near-Death Studies in Washington, D.C. last autumn. And I was delighted to see in the book room where, all the books are for sale from people who come to the conference. I was delighted to see that somebody put together a DVD and a book. I think there was a book with that, with the DVDs, for people in the caring professions, such as nurses or, yes, maybe doctors too. And I thought, finally, at last, somebody's done the whole meal deal. And, obviously, I'm not just the only person who thinks that there should be more help for near-death experiences in the right places. IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, is doing tremendous work, I have to say. They're wonderful. They really give tremendous support to near-death experiences.
Okay.
And I think they are international. I think there's I don't know if you call it a chapter or what, but they're in quite a lot of countries now.
Well, we'll put their web address up on the screen in just a moment as well. Even those, we've said this before in the previous section, but even if you've not had a near-death experience, you can still use the book to find your mission in this life now through using, the back pages.
You probably could. If you weren't a near-death experiencer, I don't see why not. It's not as... The course I gave to the general people, members of the general public, years ago, was sort of more concrete, more direct. I prefer my course, but that's because I'm a good dreamer. I have books and books and books of dreams that I've had. I write them down if I feel like it. And for me, I can, I would, yes, if I wanted to know my mission, I'd go with that route. I'd pick that kind of a course. It's got more transpersonal tools in it, which would fit me.
Yeah, yeah.
And suit me.
I mean, I guess another great thing about your book is that, if you've had a near-death experience, it can be quite challenging in a sense after the near-death experience. I mean, what are some of the challenges that this book can sort of, help you overcome in a sense?
Well, probably the first thing I would say, apart from the obvious about finding the mission in life, is that it gives validation to the near-death experience, because a lot of near-death experiences have told me that they've been told, do not talk about it, it's not true, you're making it up, you know. Absolutely, they've been met with denial. And as I said, some of them are met with ridicule. And some of them are being given strong medications, which they didn't need, They had had a near-death experience. There wasn't anything else going on. It was just the after effects of the experience that people don't really understand. And they've been, a lot of them are misdiagnosed. But that's a shame. It really is, because I think now, can't speak for I don't know about the UK. I don't know what they're doing, but I do know that in the US, psychiatry is now including transpersonal psychology, and so they're using transpersonal methods, which I think is very good, to help their clients, as opposed to the traditional, usual ones, the clinical psychology and what's the other one? I can't remember. Humanistic behavior and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it is. I think there is a breakthrough. I think there has been a breakthrough, and certainly in the States they're doing more about it. In the Netherlands, they are also more cognizant about the near-death experience, because they've studied quite a bit there. And in the UK, Penny Sartori has just put out a new book. She did a 5-year clinical study of patients from the intensive care unit who had had near-death experiences. She did that for her PhD, and she has now just put out a new book. I think it's not actually released yet. I think it's called Wisdom of the Near-Death Experience Survivors, or something similar to that. But Penny Sartori is bringing this more into the eyes of the public in England, in the UK, which I'm very pleased about. I'm delighted about that.
Yeah,
we're
going to get her on the show as well, definitely, because I know Penny.
Yes.
Yeah, this work must have just changed you so much. What's a couple of the things you would say that after mixing with near-death experience survivors that you've taken from it?
Not consciously taken. Let's see what I've absorbed. Possibly I'm more empathic about everything. I am certainly more able to tune in to people. I'm more clairsentient than I was. I always have been, but now I'm pretty much aware of it. I'm more able to sort of go with the flow, and I'm actually getting to the point where small details don't upset me anymore, which is good. Things that might have bothered me before, I see really weren't important. They're small in the big scheme of things. I've been able to extend my thinking, and sometimes I have this, it only lasts a microsecond, but it makes me feel as though I am part of a magnificent whole of everything, which is not only intelligent and loving, but surrounds us all the time. And I've thought about this. And I thought, well, it happens spontaneously. I wish I could tune into it at will, and maybe I'll learn to do that. I don't know. But this has happened to me since I've been doing this work, yes. I have always known there was a lot more out there that I didn't know. But the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. And I hope I never stop learning.
Well, that's very beautiful, that is. And so how can people get hold of your book, and what's your website?
My website is ndemission.com. The NDE is for near-death experience. So it's www.ndemission.com. My book is for sale on my website. I haven't got it for sale in the UK at present. I'm currently hoping that it'll be picked up by a publisher. I do have it in bookstores, in independent bookstores and also larger bookstores in Canada, which is where I live. Haven't got it in the States yet, although IANS did take some of my books. They were interested in them. But I haven't got it in the major bookstores. As soon as I had got my book up on my website, it was bought by people as far away as Australia and Germany, as well as in Europe and the North American continent. So obviously, there is interest in this worldwide.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
We just need to link up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, look, Carolyn Matthews, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a complete pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed talking with you and sharing with your audience, and I appreciate being your guest. Thank you.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming shows via themoreshow.co.uk. And do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on the show. So until next time, be safe.
The More Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained. The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the More Show website.